Hey guys, welcome to another video in the Bob Ross and the Art of Guitar series. Today's video is going to address a question that I was asked in regards to a tune called Maiden Voyage and how I approach sus chords. And this question comes from Patrick. So when dealing with the sus chords, I remember early on they sort of intimidated me a bit. You know, it just, because of the openness of the chord, I knew that I could use some sort of a pentatonic sound over top of that, but it always felt like I wasn't getting inside the chord. So it always felt like I was always floating and you know, sort of making my way, you know, through the chord with it kind of sounding right. But then when I would go to improvise without any sort of backing, it really didn't sound like much of anything. So what I want to talk about is a few of the different ways that I approach handling a sus chord. So step number one for me is very similar to what I've talked about before in dealing with tunes. The very first thing that I like to do is to go through and address the chord tones. Now in the case of this, and I'm going to start here with my 5th fret, I have my lowest note as an A because I'm thinking about a D7 at this point. So I'm not going to say D sus yet, I'm going to think D7. Right? Because it's a dominant functioning chord. And one other thing is that I have this sus sound. So the tune I'm addressing is Maiden Voyage, so you can see it as a D sus or A minor over D, which is something that's going to be beneficial in just a minute, at least the way that I think about it, how it could help if you're trying to struggle for material to play over this. So, in looking at this D sus, what I could do is take the notes from a D7 first. So I have an A, and then I have my C, D, F sharp, A, C, D, F sharp, A, and C. So I have a sus chord. Now, you're probably thinking, well, it's a sus, and you're not hearing the 3rd, you're hearing the suspended 4th, the G. So what you can do is now go to your dominant 7 chord here, and now you have an A, a C, a D, and instead of an F sharp, you're going to go to a G, and then to an A, C, a D, a G, an A, and a C. So this, just by using this, you know, just the sound of that over top of this, having the sus, that gives you that pentatonic sound, you know, at least some beginnings of the pentatonic sound. And, you know, that right there, just by using the chord tones, will really give you the inside workings of what the chord is, right? So I know that a common approach is to take a pentatonic and just play your way over it. But take a look at the chord tones and isolate those out. Now, for another way that I look at this, I see this D sus, and I relate it back, so I'm thinking about, okay, I'm thinking D7, so I'm thinking about a dominant chord, right? So when I'm looking at this chord, I'm thinking, well, what key center am I pulling this from? And the key center I'm thinking of over this to consider is G. So I'm thinking about, in this case, for where I am, and just like I continue to mention, you want to go all over the fretboard with this, but I'm taking one particular spot on the fretboard. So I'm thinking about, in this case, what would be shape number 2 in the key of G. So let's say I start trying to work with that a bit. So I'm getting some other notes that aren't just pentatonic. So what I'm going to do is put on a backing track here so you can hear a little bit of how I like to use a tonal center to play over this. Right? And what I'm thinking about is basic, like just melodies. also do during this time, as I'm getting myself familiar with the notes that are available to me, is go back and hit those chord tones. So I'm thinking about targeting, right? So there's the sus, right? The 7th, 13. And I am hitting the 3rd. Now another thing that I can think about is the pentatonic scale. So in this case, because I'm thinking about the overall tonal center of G, what I can use is my G pentatonic scale over this. That's one of the pentatonics that I can use. Now, I could also use a pentatonic scale that's based on the D. Right? Now that does have the 3rd in it, but I can use those two pentatonic scales and interchange them if I would like, and that gives more of an openness, right? So let's take a look or listen. So now I'm going to be thinking about the G major pentatonic. And I am going back to the root from time to time to solidify what's going on here, right? To have a point of focus. Now let's say I think about the D major pentatonic. I did throw in the sus there just for a minute. So that's a way to get through and to create, you know, some basic harmonic language. And something else that I like to do with that is really think about presenting an idea, kind of play around more with rhythmic values too, to create some sort of an interest. Okay, and you also heard me using intervallic structures where, you know, as using the pentatonic scale, as you have most likely come across, is that you can use intervals really well with this, your fourths, and build some lines based on that, right? Now, let's say though that you're trying to take it a little bit further. Well, actually, one more thing here. Let me throw this out really quick. One more thing. I could also think about my A minor, you know, over top of that, because A minor over D, it's still the D sus. I could be thinking about, you know, outlining an A minor 7 over top of that, or I could even think about, which I don't like to think about this too much, but some of you guys I know are probably more into it. You could also think about your A dorian over this, but it's still coming from a D7 or a G major. You know, it's all those shared notes, but it's just a matter of, you know, the chord tones that you're thinking about in the process. So if you think about the chord tones of the A minor over top of this, then you would have the 5th, which is the A, the 7th, which is the C, the 9th is the E, the G would be that sus 4, and then you're back to your A, which is the 5th again. So, now, let's say I want to play around with this a little bit more. Okay, so I'll put on the backing track here. So I've got a basic sound, and I'm feeling pretty confident with playing over the sus chord. What's another option I could do at this point? Well, what you'd like to be able to do is create some interest over top of this, you know, so building tension. So at this stage of where I'm at, so now I'm starting to think about chromatic notes. of these, as you're going outside the key, may be a little bit dissonant to your ears, and you have to work on it, and you think about where the resolution is going to be, right? So let's say my resolution is going to be the root. So I'm creating a line, and I just continuously go, and I'm wrapping back around to the inside notes and going to the outside notes, and I'm coming back to the root, right, to get that. Another thing that you could do is think about moving your pentatonic by a half step, kind of like a side slipping, right? So if I'm thinking about that G major pentatonic, right? Or let's do this, let's start it this way. So we're going to do a descending one, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about this, starting on the 7th fret, a G major pentatonic. I'm going to go down a half step to play a G flat pentatonic, major pentatonic, and then I'm going to resolve it back to a G. So let's give this a go. So you can create some nice, interesting lines. If you think about a pattern, right, and you can slip your way down into the next available pentatonic shape that's in the key of G. So those are basic ways that I handle the sus chord, and that's only on that one sus chord. So of course you're going to work out some ideas between multiple chords that are in this progression, right? The next one being the F7, right? And at that point, when you do that, then you have to think about the connections that you can make. Because I think that a common thing that guitar players do is that they want to take a pentatonic shape that they're very comfortable with, and then wherever the next, shape is going to be, like when I go to my F7, I can think about the home key that it's coming from, which is B flat. So you'll see, like, you'll have like a comfortable place that you play your G major, and then you do this shift all of a sudden where you go up to B flat. And what I would say with that is that you should be able to take an area on the guitar, and you should be able to transition between the two, right? So knowing that this is where my G major pentatonic is here, I should be able to make a little adjustment and find my B flat major pentatonic scale. Or the other being, the D major pentatonic and the F major pentatonic. You should be able to stay within a certain area, because when you do that, then you'll find these little connections that you can make, and basically your lines want to run continuously, into another chord, and it doesn't sound like you're trying to find your spot. And I think that that's something as guitarists we tend to run into those barriers. So find a place on the guitar, work your way through it. Another great exercise is to maybe only play a couple strings, deal with a couple strings at a time, and just find little patterns between the strings. So for example, if I'm seeing this D sus going to that F sus, then I could think about G major pentatonic B flat, and I'm thinking here between two strings, string 2 and string 1, I can think of these 4 notes, and then when I go to B flat major pentatonic, it's right there. And let's see if I can pull this up. Give me just a moment here just to give an example of what I'm talking about. So I'll play through these so you can hear it. Now I'm going to extend it a bit. right, guys, thanks for watching. Put this in your practice. Hopefully this will open up some material for you. If there's ever been a question of whether or not you had any issues on playing with this tune, hopefully I addressed that. If you would like for me to get more involved in this tune, I can. If not, leave your comments below. Let me know. I want to thank all you guys. This video marks the 1 month marker for Bob Ross and the Art of Guitar. The content that I put on here is really driven by what you guys suggest to me. So if you have any other questions, any songs that you would like for me to cover, or my approach to anything else that you're hearing, leave a comment, let me know. Thanks again, please subscribe, and I hope to see you soon.